Everybody knows The Wizard of Oz. Everybody's seen The Wizard of Oz.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Except that one person who you meet at a party who hasn't and kind of wears it with a badge of pride and also doesn't own a television and probably isn't really that fun anyway. Just enjoy the party and stop talking to that person. So what most people don't know is basically anything about the books that the movie is based on. There are 14 of them, and we're here to tell you everything you need to know about all of them. Frank L. Baum started the series in 1900 with The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. He wrote 13 more books before his death in 1919, and even more Oz books were published after his death. But most people think that only Baum's books are canon. So here's the deal. Dorothy's bizarre adventures begin in the first book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. You know the drill. The tornado sucks up the house lands on the Wicked Witch, Dorothy steals her shoes, except here the shoes are silver, not ruby. Dorothy goes to see the Wizard of Oz, collecting the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion along the way. There are no major changes to the plot that we know, save a battle with a giant spider. Dorothy uses her shoes to get back to Kansas and Aunt Em. No big surprises here. We got this one. Book number 2 was The Marvelous Land of Oz. This is where things start getting weird. A boy named Tip is basically enslaved to a witch named Mombi, who gets pissed at him one day and threatens to turn him into a statue. Tip makes a fast exit with Jack Pumpkinhead, some dude he created with a pumpkin for a head. Jack and Tip team up with the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and others to fight Mombi and restore the missing Princess Ozma as the rightful ruler of Oz. So we find out that Tip is Ozma, but that he was kidnapped and transformed by Mombi as a baby. Ozma seems to get over her gender identity switch pretty quick and regains the throne. Many elements of this book made their way into the traumatizingly frightening 1985 epic Return to Oz, including the search for Ozma, the introduction of Mombi and Jack Pumpkinhead, and the powder of life, which can bring inanimate objects to life, like this weird flying moose thing. Book 3 is Ozma of Oz. Dorothy is back in Oz alongside her talking chicken, Billina. She travels through the land of Ev with TIK-TOK, a steampunk clockwork man from before steampunk was a thing, and ends up as the prisoner of a princess with 30 interchangeable heads. Except the princess doesn't really want to rule. She just kind of wants to stare at her collection of heads. The real royal family of Ev have been trapped and transformed by a spell into tchotchkes in the underground dungeon of the gnomes. When the spell is broken, Dorothy uses the Gnome King's magic belt to get out of Oz. More elements from the Return to Oz movie were introduced here, like the Gnome King and his fetish for turning people into knickknacks, a witch with removable heads, TIK-TOK, and Billina, who is probably the most important chicken in the world next to Camilla from the Muppets. Book number 4, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, finds Dorothy back. Why does she keep going back? After an earthquake drops her and her cousin Zeb into Oz. They encounter the newly returned wizard and spend most of the book dealing with hostile vegetable creatures and a group of invisible people who stay invisible to avoid being eaten by invisible bears. Eventually, Ozma sends Dorothy and Zeb home, and the wizard stays in Oz. There's also a subplot involving Dorothy's cat, Eureka, who is put on trial for eating Ozma's pet pig. I mean, don't leave your pig out. Book number 5 is The Road to Oz. Dorothy and Toto end up in Oz, again, joined by a senile hobo named the Shaggy Man and a boy named Button Bright, who likes sailor outfits. The book is mostly about their journey to Oz for Ozma's birthday. Dorothy finally gets a break in book number 6, The Emerald City of Oz, when Ozma invites her to be a princess and live in the palace. Happily ever after, right? Wrong. The Gnome King tries to conquer Oz with all sorts of unsavory allies, like the Grand Gallipoot. That was my nickname in high school. But the gnomes are defeated when Ozma tricks them into drinking the Water of Oblivion, which makes them forget why they wanted to attack in the first place. The magic in Oz has a thing for animating inanimate objects and vice versa. Case in point, book number 7, The Patchwork Girl of Oz. In it, an oversized ragdoll named Scraps is brought to life by a Munchkin couple, but accidentally turns them into marble. The couple's nephew, Ojo, sets out with Scraps to find the 5 items that can restore them. For most of the book, though, Scraps is just dancing around and spewing bad poetry. Book number 8, TIK-TOK of Oz, sees TIK-TOK, the Clockman, teaming up with Earth Girl Betsy Bobbin and that senile hobo, the Shaggy Man. The trio set off to find Shaggy's brother. They also end up battling the Gnome King, who got his memory back after book number 6 and then loses it again, and prevent a takeover of Oz by Queen Anne of Oogaboo. There's also a dragon that wears a pearl necklace and a fairy named Titi Hoochoo. Try saying that 10 times fast. Just when you thought enough mortal little girls mysteriously dropped into Oz, there's another one in book number 9, The Scarecrow of Oz. A boating accident upturns young Trot and her peg-legged friend Cap'n Bill into Oz, where they become collateral damage in a politically turbulent love triangle in the kingdom of Jinxland. Not that they're ever in any real danger, which is why the Scarecrow saves them. Book number 10 has the best title, Rinkitink of Oz. King Rinkitink runs away from the throne with his grouchy goat Bilbil, only to find himself caught in the invasion of another kingdom. After the king and queen are captured as slaves, Rinkitink resolves to help young Prince Inga release them, and eventually does. Highlights include Glinda turning the goat into Prince Bobo of Boboland. You'd expect people to get lost in Oz, but book number 11, The Princess of Oz, Ozma herself disappears along with a golden dishpan belonging to a baker called, what else? Cake. Dorothy and the other 2 human girls, Trot and Betsy Bobbin, must brave a city of walking, talking teddy bears who condemn them to death before they find Ozma, who was kidnapped. Book number 12, The Tin Woodman of Oz, tells the Tin Man's origin story. Before the Wicked Witch of the East lost her life and her shoes, she enchanted his axe to chop him to pieces so he wouldn't marry her ward, Nimmy Ann. He meets the Tin Soldier, who the witch also transformed. The two find out that Nimmy Ann is now married to a man made of their mutilated body parts. Go figure, love is tough. Out of all of the made-up words in Oz, this proves the most powerful in book number 13, The Magic of Oz. A boy named Kiki Aru starts turning people into animals and animals into people and animals into other animals so he can create an army to take over the Emerald City. Thankfully, Ozma and Co defeat him by turning him into a walnut. The final book by Baum, Glinda of Oz, finds Dorothy and Ozma held captive by a queen who uses sorcery to sink her palace underwater to make sure they don't escape. Even Glinda can't reverse this magic. The only ones who can are 3 fish, who aren't really fish, but women whose magic arts the queen later stole and twisted. But hey, that's just another day in Oz. So there you go. That's what the Oz books are all about. Which is the weirdest? Which do you think should be adapted into a movie? Are you still traumatized from seeing Return to Oz? Yeah. Let us know in the comments. And hey, if you've got an Oz therapist, let me know.